15 years, blowing the doors off the competition, podcasting to planet Earth.
PNRNetworks.com.
Now entering the PNR Networks arena, coming down the aisle from Revere, Massachusetts, weighing in at absolutely none of your business. It's the Mistress of Mayhem, the Queen of Quips. It's time for Ring Around the Rosie with your hostess, Kim Brown.
Hey everybody, welcome to another week here on Ring Around the Rosie. I am your hostess, Kim Brown, aka Platinum Rose Lady, coming to you on Tuesday, the 7th of April, 2020. Okay, obviously we have much to discuss on the show here today because this is the post-Wrestlemania show after what has to be, honest to blog, the most unique Wrestlemania ever. Before we get into the whole show, I would actually like to say something that I wanted to get this out there and get it out in the forefront because I've said some things here on my show, leading up to WrestleMania, and they've been mostly critical. And I'd like to, I still kind of feel like, wow, I'm not sure this was the right decision, but I definitely don't feel any longer like it was totally the wrong decision. The whole speech that Stephanie gave at the beginning of the show, both nights, I actually kind of was listening to that and listening to it. I wasn't just, being like, whatever, I really listened to it and I was like, you know something? They have some good points. People do need to be distracted because seriously, not for nothing, but if all you're watching on TV right now and all you're reading online right now and all you're reading in newspapers, assuming people still read actual physical newspapers and don't just look up stuff online, if all you're reading about is this disease and the number of people that have died from it and the number of people that are sick from it and all of this horrible news, can I make a suggestion from me to you? Stop it. I'm not saying that you shouldn't keep up to date. I'm definitely not saying that. But if all you're watching is all of this stuff, this is going to make you nuts. And speaking as someone who is nuts, this isn't the good kind of nuts, like me. This is the bad kind of nuts. This is the lock yourself in the bathroom and don't ever come out kind of nuts. You don't want to do that. People do need to be distracted for even just for a little while. You need moments where you can be taken out of what is admittedly an exceedingly scary time. And the WWE worked really hard to make that happen. And so have other places. So did AEW, so is Game Changer Wrestling and lots of other indie feds and everybody else who's really trying to do something. And to all the wrestlers and all of the people out there from every fed, doesn't matter which one, from the bottom of my heart, I would like to say a big, huge thank you. I know you guys a lot of you are doing this because it's your job and stuff like that. And and a lot of the indie wrestlers, they're doing this because it's their, this is how they get paid. But it's also because this is what you do. You're wrestlers. You want to entertain people. And I mean, like I said, there were certain parts during WrestleMania over the weekend that I was like, okay, this would have worked a lot better if there was a crowd, but circumstances, you work with what you have, adopt, adapt, and improve, Yes, that was a quote from a Monty Python episode. What are you gonna do? So we're gonna talk about WrestleMania, which was over 2 nights this past weekend, from the WWE Performance Center, which, I'm sorry, I was kind of like the whole 2 nights thing. I was like, I don't know how this is gonna work, but I have to be honest, it worked. I mean, I really did think it worked really well. There were, like I said, not everything was perfect, and I have some quibble dibbles here and there, but for the most part, I had fun. I had more fun on one night than I did on the other night, and I think it'll be kind of obvious once we get to that. So let's kind of jump right into things. So beginning with the show and the opening package that we had at the beginning of the show, which was the only time I got to see Roman Reigns, which I understand. I completely understand. Roman has a wife and kids to think about, and his own health with, all of the problems he's had, being a double leukemia survivor and everything like that. Roman, if you're out there, peace and love to you, dude, and blessings to you and your family. Hope you're all doing well. So, we begin the show with like I said, this kind of, piratey themed hype thing. The person they had doing the narration on that, your Jack Sparrow was good. It wasn't drunk enough. It was buzzed. It wasn't drunk. So it was a nice Jack Sparrow, but it wasn't a perfect Jack Sparrow. Oh, sorry, my bad. Captain Jack Sparrow. You have to remember the captain part. But I mean, it was fun, and it was kind of weird, but it was cool. So WrestleMania was hosted by, former Patriot Rob Gronkowski. Gronk, woo! I would like to know where Gronk got that jacket so I could never shop there. I'm like, wow, okay, buddy, the 80s called, they want their jacket back. Yike. And of course he's out there with his buddy Mojo Rawley, which made sense, and they were loud. They were very loud. But that's Gronk. If you're from New England, you know that. And if you're one of the teams that Gronk was part of when he was part of the Patriots and rolled over everybody else. Oops, did I say that out loud? Oh, silly old me. I know. There's a whole bunch of people out there right now that want to kick my butt. Ha ha ha. So anyway, beginning with night 1. And we have the pre-show, which was the kickoff with Drew Gulak going against Cesaro, who's part of the Artist Collective, along with Shinsuke Nakamura and Sami Zayn. The Artist Collective. Oh, pardon me. Shoo. I'm sorry. It's like, okay, let's try and come up with the most pretentious name we could possibly think of. Ta-da! I'm like, okay, wow. This match saw Cesaro win over Drew by performing the finisher, the UFO, and getting a pinfall. So the actual show kicks off, and like I said, we get an intro from Rob and Mojo, and their clothes are making my eyes bleed, but that's neither here nor there. And the first match of the card was the Kabuki Warriors, Asuka and Kairi Sane. This is not a reflection on neither Asuka nor Kairi. It irritates me. I've brought it up before. I tweeted about it. I'm not going to do it anymore. With them defending their women's tag team belts against Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross, former champions. And the match was won by Alexa and Nikki after Nikki performed a purge on Kairi Sane, and then Alexa followed that up with a Twisted Bliss. So now Alexa and Nikki are 2-time women's tag team champions. I have to be honest, I really didn't think this team was going to last as long as it has. I figured sooner or later Alexa would stab Nikki in the back. And that hasn't happened yet, and I'm surprised and impressed, and I'm happy for them. Congratulations on winning. Nikki, member of the Supernatural family, we stick by our own. Following that was a match with Elias against King Corbin. Sorry. Gag reflex kicked off. I'm sorry about that. With, like, I was kind of like, okay, like I mentioned before, I was like, okay, Elias is a face again. Okay, that guy, people complain about Big Show, like, flip-flopping between face and heel. I'm like, have y'all looked at Elias lately? That's like a picture, like, it's one of those little, those books you had when you were a kid where you flip the pages really fast and the little man at the bottom of the page does a dance. Elias is like that, flip, 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 you know, which I like it better as a face. I'm sorry, it's just me. Elias wound up winning by performing a roll-up on Corbin, which I was perfectly fine with because I can't stand Corbin, which is his job. But it's like you could be slightly less good at your job because I really, really, really hate you. I know. I just confused myself, so it's what it is. Next was the match for the Raw Women's Championship with champion Becky Lynch going against Shayna Baszler. Now, I have mentioned this over and over and over and over and over again. It's just me. It's just, I admit it's me. I admit completely it's a nitpicker me kind of a thing. I don't understand. I mean, I shouldn't say I don't understand it because I do get it. I just don't like it. The man thing with Becky Lynch, because I'm sorry, I'm like, so we're calling ourselves the man after the whole, you know, I get that it's the whole Ric Flair to be the man, you gotta beat the man thing, but I'm sorry, a woman calling herself the man, I'm like, isn't this a step down? I'm sorry. That's not nice. I'm sorry. I'm like, oh no, that means Becky's lost all sense of direction. Oh no. And never mind. It's this whole joke thing between me and my husband about how men never ask for directions when they're lost. This went a lot quicker than I thought it was going to. I don't know what I thought was going to happen with this match, and that's not a complaint. It's just I didn't expect this match to end as quickly as it did. Shayna applied the Kirifuda clutch on Becky, and Becky wound up countering it, turning it into a roll-up, and then got the pin, so winner and still women's champion Becky Lynch. And Shayna, I was like, oh crap, she's gonna explode, and that did not happen. I was like, Shayna almost seemed to be, I guess, in shock would be the best way to put it. She just seemed kind of like every single ounce of her soul got sucked out. It was like she just kind of sat there in the corner and looked completely gobsmacked. I mean, I could get it. You know, you work really hard for something and then you don't reach the goal. But I was like, wow, that is not the, that is not the reaction I thought we were going to get from Shayna if she lost. I figured she'd probably, like, charge at Becky and maybe rip her head clean off or something, but that didn't happen. The following match was Sami Zayn, who is the Intercontinental Champion. Oh gosh, that hurts. Oh gosh, that hurts to say that. Ricky Steamboat held that belt and now this dweeb has it. The people that have held that belt and now it's... Okay, sorry. Rant over. Who was accompanied by the other members of the artist collective. I'm like, or initiative or whatever it is. I'm like, ew. Cesaro and Shinsuke Nakamura. Sami Zayn's outfit. Okay, what the heck? I'm like, okay, is there some reason we're dressed like Che Guevara? Is there some reason for this? I'm like, I don't get it. I'm like, I'm confused. Going against Daniel Bryan, who was accompanied to the ring by Drew Gulak. And, because, like I said before, I don't get how this happened, because it was all like, oh, we're fighting and, you know, I don't respect you. Now I do respect you and we're tag team partners and I don't get it. I'm confused. The first part of the match was basically Sammy doing everything he could to run away from Daniel. I'm like, great, so you have no fashion sense and you're ballless. Fantastic. And So eventually, every time Bryan would chase after Sammy, and then Cesaro and Shinsuke would try and get in his way, and that got Drew Gulak involved, and eventually Sammy tried to take the cheap way out by trying for a count out, and Daniel Fine was like, F this, and dragged him back in the ring and just went completely off. And I have to say, there is nothing more fun to me than watching Daniel Bryan completely lose his snit. 'Cause, he's usually very, he's very, not, I wouldn't say methodical is in a boring way, but he's very focused. But when he gets mad, it's like, look out. And it was just crazy. Eventually, Nakamura and Cesaro were able to get the numbers advantage on Drew Gulak, and that kind of caused a distraction outside the ring. So when Daniel tried to slam Sammy did a hell of a kick, and that was in the air, and pinfall, and Sammy keeps the belt, and I go off and cry for a few minutes. Mr. Perfect held that belt, and now this guy has it. The universe can truly be cruel. Following that was the SmackDown Tag Team Championship, which was this. Now this was just kind of what the hey? Because it was supposed to be a triple threat ladder match with all of the tag teams involved. Okay. So, that being said, didn't quite turn out that way. So, because of an illness on the part of one of the champions, being the Miz, get well soon, Miz, so we had, instead of having the team of the Miz and John Morrison putting their belts up against Biggie and Kofi Kingston from the New Day, versus Jimmy and Jey Uso instead. So it's like, okay, so we're still going to do the tag team match, but we're only going to do it with one person on each team. Ow! I'm like watching this like, are you what? I'm like, okay, so it's a tag team match, but we're defending the belts, but we're only going to have one person from each team. Ow. This is math. Math hurts. That's not a gender thing. That's just a me thing. I hate math. I'm bad at it. So anyway, this turned out to be a train wreck. I mean, and I don't mean that as disparaging. That didn't sound very good, did it? I like ladder matches. But my thing with the ladder match, and I realize this might cause a little agita out there for some people, but I prefer ladder matches where it's one opponent against one opponent. Shawn Michaels against Razor Ramon at WrestleMania 10. That's my idea of a ladder match. When you've got more people involved than two, I get lost. I do. I get kind of like, I don't know where to look anymore. This turned into a huge mess because everybody was at the top of the ladders at the end of this match. You had Kofi and Jimmy Uso and Morrison up at the top. Both Jimmy and Kofi hit John with a headbutt. John falls off of the ladder while he's holding the belt. So therefore, Miz and John Morrison keep the belts. Speaking from a logistics standpoint, and I realize talking logistics in wrestling is pointless, and me talking logistics is just hilarious, but I kind of understand why they did that, because it really kind of wouldn't have been fair for John to drop the belts if it was for the tag team belts, by the way, as just him. I mean, I don't think that would have been right. So I think they kind of painted themselves into a corner. Following that was Seth Rollins against Kevin Owens. Okay. I don't actually know if I've really gone on much of a rant about it, but since it's Holy Week, I might as well do it. I hate Seth Rollins' new gimmick. There, I said it. Speaking as a person of faith, I find Seth's gimmick very, very unpleasant, annoying, and continuing the WWE's marked bias against religion, specifically against Christianity. I mean, I get it. I mean, you've seen online for years people referring to Seth as CrossFit Jesus. I guess some people feel he looks like artist representations of Jesus. Okay. Fine, I suppose, whatever. I mean, if they think Jim Caviezel looks anything like what Jesus probably looked like, then, what does Hollywood know? But I find this really, it makes me, okay, maybe offensive isn't the right word, because I'm not one of these people that's, I'm offended, ban that. I'm not saying anybody needs to ban anything. I'm not going to start a cancel Seth Rollins thing or whatever, but I find it uncomfortable. It makes me uncomfortable. Put it that way. For whatever it's worth. And I'm not saying that I dislike Seth Rollins as a person. I'm sure he's a nice guy. So I just needed to get that out there. And just the fact that the WWE's put me in a position where I have to cheer Kevin Owens irks me. There. I said that too. I'm being honest with you guys. I feel like I'm back in therapy. And I'm fooling. No, I'm not fooling because I like I said, I don't know Kevin Owens as a person, and I've heard more than one story saying what a lovely guy he is, but he's for so long played such an obnoxious a-hole heel. It's very weird to cheer for him. It's very strange how the audience, before the whole can't wrestle in front of a crowd thing, people immediately took to Kevin as a face. I was like, okay, I don't get it. It's very weird how you have some people, it's very strange, and this is kind of a going off on a tangent, but it's my show. It's very weird how you have face and heel turns that don't work. 'Cause it doesn't happen a lot, I don't think, but when it does happen, oh boy, is it a spectacular fail. You can have someone turn heel. It's very weird when you have someone turn from a face to a heel and the audience just going, nope, we're not going to accept it. And it's very weird having someone, it doesn't seem to happen as much from a heel turning to a face. I don't know, maybe it's because a lot of heels are charismatic when they're heels, and then when they're a face, it's like, it's okay to cheer them now. I don't know. It's weird. This match, needless to say, big surprise, was a mess. And I mean a mess as in it was amazing and all over the place. I'm not saying the match was bad. The match was amazing. But it was one of these matches where you really, honest to blog, felt like these guys were trying to straight up kill each other. It ended with Kevin Owens getting his bell rung, literally, because Seth smacked him with the ring bell. And it made a very hard bong noise. I was like, ow. I hope that's a sound effect from the Foley guys, because that's, ooh. And the referee's all like, ring the bell. And so Seth got disqualified, and Kevin won. Granted, Kevin really didn't look like much of a winner, and at least Seth was still walking. So the thing is, Owens manages to get in the ring. I'm like, good grief, you have fortitude. Gets on the mic and starts just tearing Seth Rollins a new bunghole, and calling him just calling him every name in the book, and said like, let's keep going, let's keep doing this, and he wanted this to go on now and face him right now in a match that had no DQ, which of course Seth's going to accept because he's a heel and a douche nozzle right now, and he figures that he's already beat Kevin half to death. So now that there is a no DQ, now it's a no DQ match, he could probably drop a piano on him and that'd be fine. So this continued, and the thing is, Kevin's like, well, you're going to hit me with the ring bell, I'm going to hit you with the ring bell twice, or maybe 3 times, at least twice. And Kevin gets Seth onto a table. That sounded wrong. And then walked in the back. I'm like, Kevin, where the hell are you going? You know, and then all of a sudden, oh, there he is. Oh no. He got up on top of the Wrestlemania sign. And I mean, it was high up. It wasn't like crazy stupid high. I mean, it wasn't like, you know, it wasn't like Kevin had come down with a sudden case of Shane McMahon syndrome where you have people that automatically just feel compelled to throw themselves off the crazy, stupid, highest thing in the room. But it was still pretty frickin' high. And I was like, please don't let Seth move. Please don't let Seth move. And down Kevin came and right on top of Seth. I was like, wow, okay, that worked. And and that didn't even finish it off. Then we get a stunner because why not? And referee makes a pin. So Kevin Owens actually won 2 matches during WrestleMania against the same opponent, maybe like 5 minutes apart. Ow. Why do I keep saying things that hurt my own head? Why do I do that? Following that, we had a little segment up above because Gronk and Mojo were on this like balcony above the ring, not directly above it, but you know what I mean. And out comes R-Truth, who is the current 24/7 champion and still crazy as a bag of ferrets. And the thing that usually happens with the 24/7 belt happened with Rob trying to pin Truth and then Mojo Rawley shoving Gronk out of the way and he pinned Truth. So now Mojo Rawley is the 24/7 champion for an unprecedented 7th time, and there was much rejoicing. Yay. The next to last match was Universal Champion Bill Goldberg going against Braun Strowman. Now, we've already gone through the reasons why the match was changed, because it was originally supposed to be Goldberg going against Roman Reigns. It is what it is. And this was fast. Now, I realize saying a Bill Goldberg match was fast is not a surprise to anybody who's watched, wrestling for more than, 6 months. That's not a slam. Some people work quickly, some people don't. It's the way it goes. I mean, it wasn't as fast as the match that Goldberg had against Brock Lesnar that it was like, wait, what the hell just happened? Where he just pinned Lesnar which was awesome. But it was a lot quicker than I thought it was going to be. But that doesn't mean it wasn't physical, because it was physical. You got Goldberg performing 3 spears on Strowman, and then getting one more in for a 4. So we have 4 altogether, and that still didn't put Braun down. Goldberg went to hit Braun with a jackhammer, and Braun countered that, and then power slammed Bill again, and again, and one more time. So 4 running power slams later, we have a new Universal Champion in Braun Strowman. So now we come to what I was waiting. This was there were 2 matches that I was waiting for going into WrestleMania. And one of them I didn't get to see because Roman had to bow out because of illness concerns, which, as I said before, is fine. But this was the other one. The Undertaker going against AJ Styles in a boneyard match. Which, up till that point, I was still going, what in the forking fudging frog is a boneyard match? As it turns out, a boneyard match is a buried alive match, which was done in a cemetery. I don't know if it was an actual cemetery or not. as opposed to something that the WWE set up. Because I'm not sure you can do stuff like this in an actual cemetery, but I don't know. That's some seriously bad mojo doing it that way. And also a warehouse somewhere in and around the Orlando area. So they're outside for this. So how they did not get eaten alive by bugs, I have no idea. I've been to Florida. Florida is a very nice place. Florida is also a very hot place, and they have bugs that are large enough to carry off a toddler. Okay, that was an exaggeration, but they do have very big bugs in Florida, and bugs are attracted to light, so I was kind of like, okay, whatever. We start off the match with a hearse driving up to the cemetery, and the Undertaker's music is playing, and there is a casket and druids, and out comes AJ Styles being a cocky a-hole. And, talking a whole bunch of smack to the Undertaker and stuff like that. The whole druids thing, I also would like to bring up, I realize some people are going to be like, look, you're being a total wokester here, Kim. I'm not trying to be, but druids, that's somebody's religion, y'all. I mean, you need to come up with another term besides druids. I don't actually know if there are any more druids, to be honest with you. I mean, there's probably somebody out there that still practices druidism, nature worship. I don't know how to word it. Most of what I know about druids comes from Dungeons and Dragons. I'm sorry. Then the Undertaker shows up on a motorcycle, to riding in. The music they were using was a song by Metallica called Now That We're Dead. Found my new wedding march. No, I'm kidding. And also, if my husband hears this, I'm definitely kidding. He won't let me come into the Emperor's March. I'd really like to do that, but he wants to be, Anyway, this was filmed like a movie, and it felt like a movie. And I mean, it felt like a movie in the best way possible. There was interference from Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson, which is a big surprise, and The Undertaker beat the crap out of them. The Undertaker had to beat the crap out of the bunch of druids that came with AJ beforehand, and all during this time, AJ is fighting with Taker. AJ had already mentioned that there was a gravestone prepared for Taker. There's an open grave, and AJ picks up a shovel, bashes the Undertaker with it, and he falls into this grave. So AJ climbs into a earth mover, a little mini bulldozer thing. I don't know what to call that thing. I'm sorry. Anybody out there who knows what those things are called, you can tell me. I'm fine with that. And it was already full of dirt. How convenient. I'm going, oh, it's Chekhov's heavy machinery. The thing is, AJ's trying to start this thing up, and all of a sudden there's light behind him, and the Undertaker stands up behind him, and I might have made some noises that might have, I moaned. Okay. I mean, it wasn't quite Christian Bale's whole here in Batman Begins, but it was close to that sort of a moan. I admit it. I don't care. Woman needs, don't judge. And the look on AJ's face was frickin' priceless. And of course he turns around and there's Taker. And so they start fighting again, and they wind up AJ, who by now has realized exactly how far over his soccer mom head he is, him and his soccer mom hairstyle, he climbs up to the top of the roof of this warehouse, and Undertaker goes after him, and also so do Gallows and Anderson. He fights them while he's on top of the roof. Throws Gallows off the rooftop. I laughed hysterically. Did a tombstone piledriver on Carl Anderson. I laughed even harder. And threw AJ off of the building, and by now I'm laughing like the Joker. Again. I do that. It's unnerving. Taker, like, the next part was just so awesome. It reminded me so much of something else I'll tell you about in a second. With AJ, like, I mean, he's dragging Taker's dragging AJ over to this grave, and AJ's like whining, like, don't bury me and all this stuff like that. And Taker's all like, no, I'm not going to do that. You stood up, you stood your ground, you gave me a hell of a fight and all this stuff like that. And he basically seems like he's not gonna do it. And then he turns around and punches AJ right into the open grave, starts up the earth mover, whatever it is, and tipped in the dirt. And the camera pans down into the grave. AJ's hand is sticking up out of the dirt. The Undertaker gets on his bike, and his symbol appears on the warehouse behind, and he drives off down the road to Now That We're Dead, and we get the copyright WWE, blah, blah, blah. Oh my gosh, this was awesome. This was so cool. I love how the whole thing with the Undertaker's character was kind of a fusion of his supernatural character and the American badass gimmick. I think it was kind of a mix of both of those. And I think it worked really, really well. I really do. I just loved this. I thought it was just super cool. The whole thing with the Undertaker being all like, I'm not gonna bury you. I'm not gonna do this, that, and the other thing. And then he totally blasts him and throws him into the grave. What that reminded me of was this is gonna, there's a movie that was a Western called McClintock. It was one of John Wayne's movies, and there's this whole part where he's talking to this guy, and I'm paraphrasing the lines. It's something like, someone ought to bust you in the mouth, but I won't. The hell I won't. And then punches the guy. It reminded me of that. And it was just so cool. It was just so frickin' brilliant. I love how there's all these people online being like, oh, well, The Undertaker committed murder at the pay-per-view, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay. Could we talk about all the times that The Undertaker has been buried alive? And let's talk about the time that Randy Orton threw him in the back of a car and then drove the car backwards into the SmackDown set, and there was like 7 billion explosions, and it's very obvious that they were trying to intimate that The Undertaker was burned alive, whatever, blah, blah. So apparently Taker got his own back. So there. So now we get to night 2, which is Sunday night. And the pre-show for Part 2 of WrestleMania was Liv Morgan going against Natalya. Natalya and her cat ears. I love cats too, Natty, but the cat ears are a bit much. With Liv winning over Natalya with a roll-up. So that was like, okay, that's, I don't know what I expected, but that kind of wasn't it. The pay-per-view begins with Rhea Ripley putting her NXT Women's Championship up against Charlotte Flair. Both of these people are amazing workers, so that didn't surprise me. This was a really good match. With Charlotte winning at the end of a very evenly matched, very evenly back and forth kind of a deal. She got Rhea in the figure 8, and Rhea had to tap out. So Charlotte becomes the NXT Women's Champion, and this is the second time she's won the belt. So that's pretty cool. The cynical part of my brain was thinking to myself, I wonder if they're putting the belt on Charlotte because they want to try and have people watch NXT to see her because it might ding AEW's ratings. That's a very cynical thing, and I scolded myself severely about it. So now you know what goes on in my head. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Yeah, it's pretty crowded in there. Following that was Aleister Black. He's scary, but still. Going against Bobby Lashley, who was accompanied by Lana. Are we being punished? Yes. Lashley tried to do a spear on Aleister. Aleister stopped that from happening with a very quick black mass. and winds up winning. I'm sorry. I know that having both these guys on the show is great for them, exposure and all that stuff like that. And they're two big hosses and they both can move. I just kind of was like, where's the drama in this? What? I mean, I don't mean to sound unkind. I'm not saying that every single match has to have some big, enormous feud behind it. Everything doesn't have to be Tommaso Ciampa versus Johnny Gargano. It doesn't always have to be that way. But I was just kind of like, why do these guys, is there a story here? Is there going to be a story here? The story seems to be that Lashley's getting tired of Lana because he said afterwards that he might need a new wife. Okay. Following that was the match with Otis from Heavy Machinery going against Dolph Ziggler. Now this got very interesting for some right reasons and some wrong reasons. Now before this match we have had the whole drama that has been the story of Otis and Mandy Rose and Dolph Ziggler. Now Otis has been sweet on Mandy for a while, and things actually seem to be kind of being reciprocated there. But things went wrong, and it seemed like, this and that and the other thing happened. Bottom line being that Dolph Ziggler wound up slipping into Mandy's affections because it seemed like Otis had done something that upset Mandy. As it turned out, on the SmackDown before WrestleMania, we had some footage that was aired on the Titantron during Dolph's match with Tucker, the other half of Heavy Machinery, which showed that Mandy's tag team partner, Sonya Deville, had been working behind the scenes with Dolph to sabotage the date that Otis and Mandy were supposed to have on Valentine's Day. So it's their fault that things haven't worked out well. And so that's where we are now with the fact that Dolph Ziggler is a scheming douche nozzle, and Sonya Deville is apparently one step away from boiling bunnies when it comes to being obsessive. This match went pretty back and forth until Sonya decided to get involved, and Ziggler, proving what kind of a man he was, then punched Otis with a low blow from behind. That brought out Mandy Rose, who came out and started slapping Sonya around, and Otis performing his move, the Caterpillar, on Dolph. Before that happened, Mandy got in the ring and hit Dolph in the crotch. Surprised she found anything to hit. I think that'd be like punching a Ken doll. And Otis wound up winning. And after the match was over, Otis picked Mandy up in his arms, and they kissed, and he brought her to the back, holding her and stuff like that. My concern and anger in this whole situation is actually focused on the commentators, and specifically on John Bradshaw Layfield. John Layfield is not someone that I like or respect for various and sundry reasons. But his commentary during this match redefined the word vile. His remarks basically boiled down to the idea that because Otis is not on the, on the Arnold Schwarzenegger side of body shaping, basically what Bradshaw was saying during this match was that heavy people shouldn't, heavy people don't deserve love. People who don't fit your ideal body type don't deserve to be affectionate. They don't deserve affection. They basically don't deserve to be out in public. They don't deserve love because they don't fit your ideal of what is physical beauty. So to John Bradshaw Layfield, who will never, ever, ever be confused with Brad Pitt, F you and F the horse you rode in on. You disgust me. The next match was Edge going against Randy Orton in a last man standing match, which redefined the term personal. This whole situation, now most of us who have been watching wrestling for a while, and I'd like to think that's a lot of you, might have come to the same opinion I have over the years, and the idea that Randy Orton is just simply not wrapped too tight. There's something wrong with that boy. Randy's whole thing is, oh, I love you, I'm doing all this because I love you, talking to Edge, talking about how I want you to be with your wife and your kids and blah, 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 and I love your wife so much I gave her an RKO in the middle of the ring. If Randy Orton's not on about 12 watch lists, I will be really freaking surprised. This was ugly. Alien autopsy ugly. Which isn't to say Randy Orton didn't deserve every single punch, kick, blow, attack, and everything else that happened during this match. Because he does. And more. I would like to bring up the one thing that a lot of people have brought up. The whole fight in the weight room, which involved a certain piece of equipment where things were reenacted to look like a tragedy from real life. I'm not even going to bring up what it was because you all know, and anybody who's been on the internet knows what I'm talking about. No. Whoever put that in, no. Whoever thought it was a good idea, no. Whoever thought they were being timely or whatever they were thinking or weren't thinking or whatever, no. Shame on you. It was tacky. It was cruel. And that's all I'm going to say about that. At the end of this match, which was fought on top of a truck in the back, or off to the side, or wherever, I don't know, Edge clamped Orton in a sleeper hold, and Orton passed out on top of a chair. How convenient. And Edge took another chair and performed a concerto on Randy. Randy couldn't answer the referee's 10 count because he probably had brain fluid leaking out of his ears. And Edge won the match. I don't usually have a problem with ultra-violent matches. Anybody who knows me knows that. My big problem with this match was that it was just too long. It was... I don't know how much I would have shaved off. I feel like 10 minutes would have been too much to shave off, but I feel like 5 minutes would have been too little. Let's go with 7. We'll go with 7. If you maybe shaved 7 minutes off this match, and I realize I'm being terribly particular, but as I've mentioned before, what the heck, it's my show. So there were no belts, there were nothing else in this match to be won except the satisfaction of Edge knowing that he beat the living holy frog snot out of Randy Orton. Something which should be done on pretty much a daily basis, in my opinion. But then again, some people have accused me of sadism, so, I gots to be me, as the song says. The next match was the Raw Tag Team Championship being held currently by the Street Profits, Angelo Dawkins and Montez Ford, going against the team of Angel Garza and Austin Theory, who would never be referred to as a Big Bang, with Zelina Vega. Or maybe you could call him Big Bang Theory, one flash and it's over. Guess we'd have to speak to Mrs. Theory about that. Sorry, that was really not nice. Montez performed a Montez did a springboard frog splash onto Austin, and then Angelo got the pin. After the match, the heels jumped on the Street Profits and started. The two guys held one of them as Zelina kicked him, which brought out Bianca Belair. And she beat the crap out of Zelina, which means that Bianca Belair is now my favorite lady wrestler at the moment. So, I'm sorry, I could watch Zelina Vega have her ass handed to her all day long, and it would just make me happy, happy, happy. We got another segment about the 24/7 belt with Mojo Rawley running away from a bunch of wrestlers, running out from the back into the Performance Center. And while they're running, all I'm hearing is Yakety Sax, the theme to Benny Hill, in my head, because why not? Rob decided to jump off of the, Rob jumped off of a balcony and jumped on all of the wrestlers and wound up pinning Mojo Rawley. So now Rob Gronkowski is the 24/7 champion. Okay. Well, I don't know what to say about that. I know some people are all like, oh, they need to get rid of Rob right now, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, you know what? I'm sorry that the Patriots kicked your team's asses over and over again, and that's why you're so sad and bitter. I hope someday you can find some peace. Or don't. I don't care. The next match was for the SmackDown Women's Championship in a fatal 5-way elimination with the Women's Champion Bayley going against Sasha Banks, Lacey Evans, Naomi, and Tamina. The first person to be eliminated was Tamina because all the other ladies jumped on top of her and got the pin. The next person eliminated was Naomi, who was eliminated by Sasha Banks because Sasha caught her in the bank statement. Following that was this whole bit of drama with Bayley accidentally shoving her best friend Sasha into Lacey, who performed the woman's right on Sasha to get her eliminated. So now we're down to Bayley and Lacey Evans. And Sasha showing that, well, I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to, nope, not going to say that. I gave up swearing for Lent, so I'm not going to use that word. Sasha showing her mettle, got back in the ring and performed a backstabber on Lacey, and then Bayley pinned Lacey to keep the belt. And then Bayley went off on this big rant about like, oh, I'm better than you and you and you and everybody else. F you. F you, Bayley. That's all I have to say. Okay, after that was the Firefly Funhouse match between John Cena and The Fiend Bray Wyatt. Apparently WWE has taken out a trademark on The Fiend, and I'm like, how? How do you take a trademark on the word the? I mean, you know, it's just a word. And fiend is just a noun as well. You know, it's not like they invented it. I'm confused about that. So this match, according to Bray or the Fiend or whoever the heck is talking at that point, I don't know. He said that it was a fight between John Cena and John Cena. It was a fight between John and himself. So I'm thinking to myself, because I'm, you know, me, I'm thinking like maybe he means like that scene in The Empire Strikes Back where Luke goes into that scary cave on Dagobah and he has to fight Darth Vader, but when he chops Vader's head off and the mask explodes and Luke's looking down at his own severed head. Maybe it's like that. And it was like that, only not. I don't, what? I'm sorry. I was sitting there during this match, and I don't even know what to call it. Match? Match does not seem like the right word. Fever dream. That seems like a bad acid trip. That might also be, consequences of suffering a very violent fall down a flight of steps. I don't know. This was a complete mind screw. For anybody who watched the Darren Aronofsky film Black Swan and thought that was a mind screw, that was mind foreplay compared to this mind beep of this match. There were puppets, there was John acting like Hollywood Hogan while Wyatt's acting like Eric Bischoff, and there were all kinds of, I didn't know. Somebody hold me. I'm scared. This all ended with John being pinned by the Fiend after a Sister Abigail and a mandible claw, and then John disappeared. And apparently all this is happening in an alternate dimension, and I need a really stiff one. Drink, I mean. I don't know. This episode of WrestleMania was brought to you by the letters W, T, and F. I mean, really, I'm like, I don't know what just happened. I'm sorry. And the thing is, I'm like, I don't know what happened, but I don't like it. I didn't have that same level of involvement that I did with the Boneyard match. I mean, it was just, I can't believe I'm going to say this because it's me, but this was just too weird. This was just too weird. Following that was the main event with Brock Lesnar, the WWE champion, accompanied by Paul Heyman, because of course he is, going against Drew McIntyre, who may or may not be a face. I'm not entirely sure. I think he's a face, maybe. I mean, he did throw Brock out of the Rumble, so I was like, well, now I want to give you a Hale and Hardy handshake. Can you give a handshake when you're on your knees? Anyway, moving on. Boo! We're over here now. I thought this was going to be, I was like, oh, we're going to get another Goldberg match, but we didn't. Bell rings and Drew's off to the races. Claymore kick, almost a pin. Lesnar then does 3 German suplexes and an F5, and McIntyre kicked out at 1. I'm like, that's awesome. F you, Brock. Lesnar does 2 more F5s. No pin. He goes for another one. McIntyre counters. 3 more Claymore kicks done. And Lesnar gets pinned. And new champion, Drew McIntyre. Which I thought was really interesting. At the end of the match, they have the spotlight focused on the laid out Brock Lesnar. I mean, you could still see Drew, but the spotlight was on Lesnar. I'm like, y'all, really? Seriously? Y'all gonna do that? And then stuff got even more interesting. After the show was done, Drew was confronted by the Big Show. And had another match with Drew going against the returning Big Show, and Drew wound up winning that with a Claymore, and that was aired on Raw. It was shown like, oh, this happened minutes after the end of WrestleMania, and I was like, oh, that's different. I was like, that's kind of different the way they did that. I was like, okay. I am going to give this show, if I was going to letter grade it, I would give it a B. I'm going to give it a B. It was fun, and it did what it was supposed to do. It was us having fun and not thinking about all of the bad stuff going on right now. And that was the point. And I mean, there were things I would have changed, like I said, but for the most part, I had fun. And I got to give it to the WWE for the way they did things. I really and honestly do. At Raw this week, we had a return of Nia Jax. Hopefully it's going to be a return where she actually stays returned and doesn't hurt people and gets sent down again. And we've got other things coming up this week, including AEW Dark, AEW Dynamite, and NXT and all these other good things like that. I don't know what they're going to be doing for SmackDown, because as far as I know, they didn't tape anything for SmackDown, so who knows what's going on there. So that, my duckies, is going to wrap up my show here for the week. I would like to say to everybody listening, hang in there. It's not easy. This right now is not fun, and it's more than a little scary, but it will pass somehow. And we all just kind of have to hold on to each other. You have to try and follow the procedures and what they're telling people to do to keep safe. And it's a pain in the neck, but if it keeps you and your family safe, you got to do it. Please try not. The biggest thing that we all have to worry about is despair. And that's the one thing we can't fall into is despair. Hopefully, if you'd like, you can listen to my other podcasts and the other podcasts that are part of our little island of misfit toys. And watch other wrestling shows by all means. You should definitely check out Viceland's Dark Side of the Ring, which will be airing tonight as I'm recording this, where they are looking at what some people have called the worst idea in wrestling, the Brawl for All. I don't think it was the worst idea in wrestling. I think it was up there. I'm actually thinking about doing a list of the worst ideas in wrestling, or at least what I think were the worst ideas in wrestling. If you have any that you'd like me to talk about, please send them my way. If you have anything you'd like to send my way, comments, queries, your own WrestleMania feelings, complaints, whatever, send it my way, platinumroselle@yahoo.com. You can follow me on Twitter if you like at platinumroselle@twitter.com. You can also find my writings on fanfiction.net. Go to the author search and put in Platinum Rose Lady. You can find my written works there if you'd like. Please check out our Patreon, join our Patron Circle, go to all our other sites and listen to some crazy fun stuff from a lot of crazy fun people. And that's going to do it for another week here on Ring Around the Rosie. This is Kim Brown signing off for another week and reminding you to take some time to stop and smell the roses. And please remember, we will get through this. Don't despair. I love all of you very much. Bye.
You have been listening to Ring Around the Rosie with Kim Brown, a production of PNR Networks. Keep in touch with all things about the show at http://ringaroundtherosie.net. Ring Around the Rosie intro performed by Eric Lyon. Ring Around the Rosie theme by Digital Juice. Join Kim for a new Ring Around the Rosie every Wednesday. Ring Around the Rosie is copyright 2018 PNR Networks, Boston, Massachusetts, USA.
15 years, blowing the doors off the competition, podcasting to planet Earth.
PNRNetworks.com